Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome into the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brice, and we have another great show for you today. We're going to talk about all things Week 16. We're going to talk about the games, my thoughts on each game. We're also going to give some predictions. We're also going to talk about some news and notes around the league, some returns, and some injury updates. We're also going to talk about those Dallas Cowboys and what went wrong from this year. And also we're going to talk about the college football playoff coming up. And I'm also going to give you all my predictions at the end of the show. So, starting off with Week 17, we're going to talk about each game. We're going to start off with the Dolphins and the Patriots. This game has playoff implications because the Patriots can still play themselves into a top 2 seed. If they win this game, they'll clinch the number 2 seed. But if they lose and the Chiefs win, then the Chiefs will get the number 2 seed. So the Patriots still have something to play for. The Dolphins have nothing to play for except pride and playing spoiler. I expect this game, if you think about the first game, after 3 quarters, really, it was 13-0 before Ryan Fitzpatrick took 2 pick-sixes to the Patriots. So I think that this game, honestly, is in Foxborough. So I'm not saying I'm expecting this game to be like close and the Patriots could lose. I mean, but you never know. The Dolphins make some plays because they've showed some explosiveness offensively. An upset could be brewing here, but you never know what's going to happen. Like I said, congratulations to Brian Flores and those guys. They're 4-4 down the stretch. After how they started the season, ending the season on a good note, 4-4, 4-5. It's going to be great for the program. It's going to be great for their future going forward with all the draft picks and cap room they have coming up this offseason. Next game is Falcons and Buccaneers. This game really means nothing in terms of playoff races or anything like that. This is strictly pure let's play football. If you're a fan of these teams and you want to watch these two teams play, this is the game to watch. So this is the game that you should probably try to go out of your way and watch. And it's crazy because Jameis Winston could make history in this game. He could be the first quarterback with 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. So that's something that's very interesting. And he also could have 5,000 yards. He is probably the greatest roller coaster quarterback that we've ever seen. And the Falcons are still playing for Dan Quinn. And, you never know. A lot of Falcon fans are on edge. I don't know if they want Dan Quinn back because we don't want another bad start and then another, losing, a good winning effort at the end. Because it's like if we're not competing with the talent we have, then something's a problem and he needs to go. But like I said, this game has no meaning as far as playoff implications. And then next after that, we have the Minnesota Vikings and the Bears. This game also really has no playoff implications because the Vikings, after losing to Green Bay on Monday night, clinched the number 6 seed in the NFC. So this is just for pride. I could see the Vikings maybe sitting some starters because they're not really playing for anything, but you never know. They're also maybe feeling like, well, we want to make sure we stay, we want to stay on top of our game. So we have a game next week. So we may want to play our starters maybe for a half or so we can be ready for the game next week and just compete whoever we got to go back, whoever the third seed is, which right now looks like it'll probably be the Saints unless the Packers lose. The next game, we have Browns and Bengals. This game really is just another game that has no playoff implications. The Browns are playing just to have a respectable record at 7-9, also to get some things right, try to get some things flowing. The Browns have a lot of chaos right now within their organization, with Freddie Kitchens, Odell wanting out. You saw on the sideline last Sunday, Jarvis Landry, a lot of players wanting out of Cleveland. They're going to have a lot of mess they got to figure out here, but maybe they can end the season on a good note with a win. The Bengals again also are just trying to finish the season on a good note. They already clinched the number 1 overall draft pick this year, so everybody believes Joe Burrow will be the new quarterback next year with Andy Dalton probably getting traded or cut. Maybe he'll stay on the roster just to play a couple of games and then play Joe Burrow. We'll have to see, but that's pretty much all that is to that game. We have Chargers and Chiefs. The Chiefs are a team that, again, if they win this game, they'll be able to get the second seed if the Patriots lose. So the Chiefs are definitely hoping the Patriots get upset somehow by the Miami Dolphins so they can get that second seed and get that bye week. And then after that, get a home divisional playoff game. And the Chargers, I mean, they've had such a reckless season. They've lost so many games by literally 3 points. It's crazy how unlucky they've been in those types of situations, losing in all those close games. It's wild to me how they've lost in those situations multiple times. And, Phillip Rivers also, he's old. He's kind of unmobile. He's a turnover machine. That's not going to sit well. So the Chargers really could go into next year with a new quarterback potentially. But, that's pretty much all these games. This game has an implication on. Well, we have Bills and Jets. Again, the Bills are pretty much going to be the fifth seed. And they're just playing to play. Like I said, they might not. There was a report saying that they might not pass the ball as much to protect Josh Allen, really just run the ball a lot, which, I mean, in this game, I can understand it, even though they're a running football team anyway. And the Jets are also playing just to end a good season, a good note. They've played well down the stretch. The Jets have. Sam Darnold has played actually very well. I believe he has 12 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in the last 5 games. And so he's played well. I think the Jets, they have something to build off of. Obviously, they know their issues going into the offseason. The Bills are just trying to get really, really ready for next week, after this week, for the playoff wildcard game they're going to play, which, again, if the Chiefs don't win, will be against the Kansas City Chiefs. So that would be definitely a game. Not the Kansas City Chiefs, Houston Texans. If the Houston Texans win and the Kansas City Chiefs win, then they'll play Houston next week in the wildcard round. So that would be who the Bills end up playing. Then the Packers and Lions. Again, Packers just need to win this game to keep the number 2 spot. And if they lose, then the Saints have the ability to jump to number 2 and then get the bye week. A lot of people are not really projecting the Packers to lose this game. Packers, again, they're trying to get maybe some they're going to probably play this game, and they're going to start this game playing very serious. I don't think they're going to sit anybody because they're still technically playing for something. So it's better to go ahead and lock up the victory and lock up the game so you're already going to see yourself that second spot. Then Saints-Panthers. Saints, obviously, going against the Panthers, they win this game. Packers lose. They'll get the second seed because that's what they're aiming for. And obviously, that'll give them the bye week because, it's hard to play in New Orleans. I mean, they're going to get a home playoff game anyway, but they'd rather get in the divisional round going into the NFC Championship game and potentially having them 1 seed lose and having a wild card, knowing that you may have at least 2 more games potentially, unless the top 2 seeds lose, where they're going to have to play on the road. Cardinals and Rams. This game really has no implications. Both teams are just playing for pride. Rams having a disappointing season after making the Super Bowl last year. A lot of questions. They've done a lot of spending. Jared Goff's your quarterback. Cardinals have more of an upright future. Kenyon Drake looks like a star running back. Kyler Murray looks like a star quarterback. They need to figure out the offensive line, improve on defense, and maybe get some new wide receivers, and the Cardinals could be a team to be reckoned with next year. Colts and Jaguars. Colts looking like just another season trying to get to 500 without Andrew Luck. They're going to look into getting a quarterback this offseason. Jacoby Brissett is nice, but he's not going to lead you to where you want to go. The Jaguars have not played that well since basically trading Jalen Ramsey. They've kind of quit on their coach, even though they say the coach is going to come back next year. And it's just not looking that great. Both teams are playing for pride right now, so that's pretty much what you're playing for if you're a fan of both these teams. Eagles and Giants. Now, this game has big implications. If the Eagles win this game, they clinch the NFC East. If they lose this game, it leaves the door open for the Cowboys to win the NFC East. All the Eagles have to do is take care of business. They're traveling to New York, but they're going to have to take care of business. 425 game. They win this game. They get the NFC East. They get the 4th seed. And we have Raiders and Broncos. Again, the Raiders have the least amount of a chance to get in, but they still can win. They have to win this game. Then the Steelers have to lose. The Titans have to lose. The Colts have to win. And they'll get into the playoffs. So they have to have a hope. A lot of things happen for them to get in. But they're still on the outside looking in to the playoffs. And again, Denver's just playing for pride. Drew Lock has played well. He looks like he could be the starting quarterback next year for the Denver Broncos. He's played well in the starts he's played in. Redskins and Cowboys, obviously this game will be crucial because the Cowboys need to take care of business regardless of what happens because they're playing at the same time as the Eagles. If the Cowboys win this game, they'll go ahead and get the NFC East Championship if the Eagles lose. If not, season's over. Garrett's probably, and a lot of Cowboy fans' hope is fired. And we'll have to see what happens with the Dallas Cowboys next year. Steelers and Ravens. Ravens, they've already clinched number 1. They're going to sit their starters this week. Lamar's not playing. Mark Ingram's not playing. Steelers need this game to get if they win this game, they clinch the 6th seed. But it'll be tough because even though Ravens may not be at full strength, the Steelers' offense has not looked impressive. So if the Steelers can't get any offensive rhythm going, it's going to be a long day. Then Titans and Texans. This game could be interesting because if the Chiefs win, we'll have to see if the Texans sit their starters. If they don't, then I think that the Titans, they can still win this game either way. Obviously, they go ahead and sit their starters. That makes it more of a guarantee. And then they're just hoping the Steelers lose so the Titans can go ahead and get into the playoffs. And then lastly, 49ers Seahawks. This is for the NFC West Championship title crown. Both teams competing here, just trying to win. Whoever wins this game gets the number 1 seed. Whoever loses gets the 5 seed. And depending on whoever loses and wins, that could actually also shift a little bit too. But that's your Week 17 slate of games and all the potential news and happenings. Coming up next, we're going to talk about news and notes around Week 17 with J.J. Watt, Beast Mode, and RG3. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment we talked about all the Week 17 games and my thoughts on each game. Now we're going to get into some news and notes around the league, starting with J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt is now cleared to practice, and they expect him to be back for the first wildcard game next week. This was a big surprise to a lot of people because J.J. Watt was thought to be lost for the season for the Houston Texans, and now they're going to get their best defensive player back. Some people have some reservations about this because they say that potentially J.J. Watt still won't be a full 100%. So could he risk maybe further injuring the shoulder, or is he going to be fine? So that's kind of the debate right now with that J.J. Watt injury. Is just like, should he play anyway, or should they just sit him out? I think they're going to let him play. They're obviously going to see what happens in practice. We don't know what's going to happen. Even though he's cleared to practice, doesn't mean they're going to let him play. They're going to have to make that determination. Obviously, J.J. Watt, he led the league in quarterback pressures before he got hurt. And he'll be a crucial part of the Houston success because he feels like this team can maybe make a run at the playoffs into the Super Bowl. They have a great offense. And, the defense has lost some pass rush without J.J. And their defense is a little suspect. But if J.J. Watt comes back, it will definitely help cover up and improve some things on the defensive side of the ball for the Houston Texans. I think that, really overall, it's going to be an interesting decision because, the Texans, they're a team that has been the first round the last couple of years, and they've lost. And they haven't played that well. They've had home playoff games and not play well at all. And, I think what this is going to add is if they get this home playoff game and J.J. Watt comes back and they still lose to whoever, which would look like right now would be the Buffalo Bills if they played them today, because that's how it is by seeding, it definitely would be disappointing for the entire organization because that's another disappointing loss. And I think that it's one of those things where, you got to make sure, is it worth bringing him back? Is there a chance? Do you think we could beat Buffalo without him and then maybe bring him back for the divisional round to give him that extra week? I mean, those are things that are those are big question marks. You don't really know if you can get away with that. And, it's one of those things where obviously, again, as Houston knows, he's one of the most valuable players and you don't want to mess this decision up. So and if J.J. Watt trusts that medical staff, then I think the right decision will be made when it comes right down to it at the end of the day. So that's my thoughts on J.J. Watt. So in other news, Beast Mode is coming back for the Seattle Seahawks. He signed a contract. this past Monday. It's literally a 1 week in playoff contract. It's not like he's going to play next year. He might, but right now that's what he signed for. Obviously, if you've heard, Seattle lost 3 running backs in the last 2 weeks. They lost CJ Procise to a broken forearm, Penny to a torn ACL, and Curtis Carson to a hip. This is critical for Seattle because they're a running football team. And they've lost their 3 top running backs. And the running back they have healthy on the roster was Travis Homer, a rookie. They signed Robert Turbin, and they signed Marshawn Lynch. Now, one thing I've seen is obviously they're signing running backs who have been in this system before, who's played for this team, is familiar with this team, familiar with what the offense they run. Because obviously this late in the season, it's kind of risky signing a new running back. Now, some people may think the running back position isn't that complicated, and they could have afforded to go ahead and sign a new one. But, I think this is what's probably best. I think we'll have to see how beast mode looks on Sunday night. And, he's been training for this. He's been training to get back. He's been training to get back into this spot so he could compete at a high level. I think that, it'll be important for them to make sure they get a running game established, especially going into the playoffs. So if you want to beat the 49ers, you got to be able to run the ball. And even if you don't beat the 49ers, you don't make the playoffs. But you want to be able to run in the playoffs. And that's going to be important for the Seattle Seahawks if they want to make a run. And, it's one of those things where the Seattle Seahawks, they're just trying to – with Russell Wilson, they have a chance. But you don't want to have it where it's Russell Wilson, no running game, where there's no threat of play action. I think Russell Wilson works best off play action, as you would think most quarterbacks are. But so you want to give some type of a threat of a running game to any defense that you play, any opposing defense that you end up playing. And I think that's going to be something that, is going to be interesting to see what happens in regards to the Seattle Seahawks situation. And it's exciting to see Beast Mode back. A lot of people love Beast Mode. A lot of people love what he's brought. A lot of people love what he's bringing to the Seattle Seahawks, because we all remember that historic run he had against the Saints back in 2011 in the wild card round when they beat the Saints. And now we're going to our next story, which is RG3 starts his first game in 3 years. RG3 drafted, won Rookie of the Year, benched, wasn't really, you could say, there wasn't as much behind them, or as behind with Mike Shanahan when he was drafted. And, really, for me, RG3 is a guy, he's just one of those guys you root for. You want to hope that he can still, do what he has to do out there, and he could potentially playing for a potential starting job. Potential starting job. And, if our RG3 looks good, some team might say, hey, we might want to pick him up next year. So this is obviously a big audition for Robert Griffin III. Robert Griffin III, if you think about that entire offense, he could come in there if Lamar got hurt and run the exact same offense, because we don't want to say they're exact same quarterback, but they have the same skill set, both mobile. We may think Lamar is a better thrower at this point, maybe than RG3. We'll just have to see how RG3 has improved in this system when he plays. I think this is, like I said, a great time for him, getting an opportunity to play. A lot of people are behind this man. They want him to be successful. He's still in the league, so that's something that he always can have. It was correct. He didn't get out the league. He wasn't a bust to the point where he's not even playing in the league. And, I think this is very important for him to just come out there and show us what he can do. Show us why, the Ravens didn't give up on him. And with the offense that they run, I think he'll be able to do that, because this could maybe set an example. Right? Bring in RG3. We know what we got to do. We know what type of offense we need to run so he can be most successful and very, effective for us when he get in there. Other news, Adrian Peterson says he wants to play till he's 40. Adrian Peterson is currently 35, still playing for the Redskins right now. He's played decent. He's not the same Adrian Peterson. He's not Adrian Peterson who got 2,000 yards a few years ago. But he's still a very serviceable running back, especially seeing what Frank Gore is doing. He's still very serviceable. He can still get those tough yards. He's a power back at this point in his career. I think any team, if the Redskins don't want him, I think you should definitely take a waiver on him if you want that veteran leadership, that hard-nosed running back in your backfield. Adrian Peterson can be that guy. And sometimes, he still get you 100-yard games. Don't think Adrian Peterson is a slouch. Adrian Peterson was the GOAT back in the day. And he thinks that he can still play for another 5 years. We don't need to sit here and doubt this man. He really might be able to sit here and play for another 5 years. So you definitely don't want to sit here and think that Adrian Peterson is washed up, because he will go out there and show you he is not washed up, and he is still one of the best backs to ever play this game. And lastly, Josh Jacobs had to get surgery after he woke up with discomfort on his leg on Wednesday. He was evaluated and treated for a superficial skin infection, so he had to get surgery for that. So I don't know if there's any official word if he's out, but I would think he would be out just because he had to get surgery. It's definitely a weird situation. You wake up one morning and next thing you know, your skin's infected. Probably woke up and felt some type of pain and he didn't know what was happening. Maybe his skin looked a little weird and he was like, what's going on here? And, they had to get that checked out and evaluated, and they got surgery for it. So hopefully Josh Jacobs is okay. We wish him a speedy recovery. He's been very important to the Raiders' success this year. He is potentially the offensive rookie of the year because of what he's done for John Gruden in the running game, over 1,000 yards. He's definitely been a nice surprise coming out of Alabama. I used to watch Alabama last year, and I kind of sometimes thought he was the best running back out of the two. And I think this regular season he proved that, as he's proven that he belongs in the league. He belongs on the big stage. And I think the Raiders, if they use him correctly, if they don't overuse him, that they have a running back that they can now use just to run. If you need to pound the rock 20 times, 25 times a game, he's your guy, and he can do it very effectively too. So you definitely don't want to sleep on Josh Jacobs. But yeah, again, we wish him a speedy recovery from his unfortunate skin injury or skin infection, and we just wish him the best moving forward. Coming up next, we're going to get into some Cowboys and Browns news and notes. We're going to talk about, is Jason Garrett going to be the head coach after the season, what went wrong, and also what went wrong in Cleveland, and why the Browns are currently in the disarray they're currently in.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment, we talked about some news and notes around the league. About J.J. Watt, Beast Mode, and some other news and notes, some injury updates, and other things that are leading up into Week 17. So that was the last segment. But this segment now, we're going to talk about the dysfunction of the Cowboys and the Browns, starting with the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, obviously a very interesting topic. They have tons of talent. They have Dak, who wants a new deal, who was playing for a new deal this year. They have Zeke, who just got a big deal, who was considered one of the best running backs in the game. They have Amari Cooper, who they traded for last year, who really opened up this offense for Dak. You have a lot of talent. You have one of the better offensive lines in the league. You have some defensive talent. Jalen Smith, Vander Esch, even though he was hurt. Sean Lee, DeMarcus Lawrence. You have talent across the board on the Dallas Cowboys. And they have significantly underperformed. Significantly. And people are wondering why. Why have Dallas underperformed? And a lot of people are blaming Jason Garrett. They feel like his coaching Jason Garrett is not a motivational coach. He is someone who will not motivate the guys to go out there and play for him. He's one of those guys who, he just coaches. And a lot of people feel like he's the head coach of the Cowboys because they think that Jerry Jones just wanted a head coach he could control. Kind of similar to the situation in Cleveland. And you can see it. Players don't really respond to him that well. I still remember last year at some point, one of the anonymous Cowboy players came out and said, we are the most undetailed, unfocused teams I've ever been on. Like, they don't pay attention to details that well. They don't know how, they don't make adjustments, basically. And there have been some games this year where you've kind of looked at the team and it's like they could have made adjustments here and they could have made adjustments here. So, the Cowboys have a lot of work to do, and they have just really underperformed. They started the year so great, but they were against bad teams. But when they played against good teams, they've struggled and they've lost almost every game except to the Rams, which was the first game against a good team that they really had a great showing against. And it's just a lot of disarray in Cowboy land, trying to figure out what's wrong. The guys they paid have not showed up. Elliott, even though statistically he's had a good year, just the impact isn't there. DeMarcus Lawrence is the highest paid Cowboy in Cowboy history. Hasn't done anything. Literally. In the biggest game of the year, no sacks. He has been completely shut out. He just has not had a good year at all. And a lot of Cowboy fans will tell you that. He has not played like we expected him to play. And then, Jalen Smith was another guy. Hasn't played that well. And it's just, it's like, is it coaching or are players just not performing or what is it with the Cowboys? What's hurting the Cowboys? What's affecting the Cowboys? And, it's just a lot of question marks. You got to really see what happens with offseason with Dak because he's the one who wants a contract. And Amari also, I believe his contract is up. And the way that the last game ended, and we don't know how this last game is going to end this week in week 17, but the way the last game ended with him being pulled off the field for poor performance, now there's even questions if Amari Cooper is even going to be brought back. Are they even going to pay him? Are they going to pay Dak? Or are they going to have the franchise Dak? These are all questions that the Cowboys have to answer. But it goes back to Jason Garrett. If Jerry Jones really wants his team to succeed, he has to take a step back and reflect and say, I need to let go of Jason Garrett, and I need to bring in a coach who he doesn't need to try to micromanage or tell them what to do or anything. He needs to let them coach and let them run the team. You can't bring in a guy who they have rumors like Urban Meyer and expect him just to listen to everything Jerry Jones does and says. Urban Meyer's going to want some power. He's going to want some control because of his coaching stature. And so if Jerry Jones wants a good head coach, a quality head coach to coach the Cowboys, he's going to have to give some power back. Jerry Jones wants credit for the success of the Cowboys. He wants everybody saying it's me, not the coach. Jerry Jones put this team together. And, you would think through history when he got into it with Jimmy Johnson, because everybody was giving Jimmy Johnson the credit, because Jimmy Johnson was the reason. Even though Jerry Jones played a part, we know it was Jimmy Johnson. And he didn't like that and let him go. And ever since then, he's been trying to find a coach he can kind of do the exact same thing to. And they haven't had success since then. They've had some winning seasons. But even when they had winning seasons, they kind of dipped below expectations. And so it's one of those things where they have a lot of things they need to fix. They have a lot of things they need to change. And the Cowboys really just – there's a lot of frustrations going to be going into the offseason. Like I said, what went wrong? Even if the Eagles lost and they got into the playoffs, I don't think it's enough to save Garrett's job. And what if they make it to the playoffs and then get destroyed? It's just like, well, what was the point? You might as well have just lost that game to the Redskins because it's not going to help anything. If everybody still underperforms, it's not changing anything. So I think it's one of those things where they have a lot of question marks going into the offseason. And we're going to have to see what they decide to do, what they feel like is best moving forward. And it switches me over to the Browns, another dysfunctional franchise. They've been dysfunctional almost longer than the Cowboys. It's funny, I was watching the show one day, and they said that the Browns are so dysfunctional that don't forget Bill Belichick couldn't even fix them. So it means a lot. So the Browns also are a team who they had a lot of talent this year, and they have a lot of personalities like Baker and Odell and Jarvis Landry. And all those personalities just have not been working out for Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens was in over his head. He's never been a head coach at any level. He never had been a coordinator, till last year before he got the job. And I think that he's a little bit in over his head. I think this is just too much for him. I think with Freddie Kitchens, you're better off bringing in a young team with maybe Baker, but just have young guys than bringing in all these stars and talent and personality, because now you're putting a coach in a position he's never really been in before and you're expecting him to handle it. Now, they said they're going to keep him going into next year. That's the expectation. Now, you never know. People say we'll keep him, and then, Black Monday hits and then he's fired. But right now they expect to keep him. And I think that that's going to be crucial because, you don't really want to be that team that just quits on a guy so quickly. Some people do it. Like, people felt like, I forgot which coach it was. I think it was 49ers head coach, where they hired Kyle Shanahan, coach for 1 year, got fired. And people were like, that was kind of quick. Or Arizona, that was a prime example. He only coached for 1 year, had a bad year, got fired. And you don't want to do that to Freddie Kitchens. But at the same time, it's just, do you really think Freddie Kitchens has the ability to grow and be able to handle these guys? Because you have players now who want to get traded, And that's not really what you want to hear or see if you're the head coach of the Browns. They have one of the most talented rosters. They have one of the best running back duos with Kareem Hunt and Chubb. They have one of the best receiving duos with Odell and Jarvis Landry. They have David Njoku, who's a good pass-catching tight end. Now, their weakness is offensive line. So one of the things we have to see, though, is my true test with a team like this and with Freddie Kitchens. You see what your flaws are. Fix them. Coach them up and fix them. Your offensive line is the weakness on your offense. If you get a better offensive line and protect Baker, then Baker could be more efficient, which then means he can get the ball to the wide receivers like Odell and Jarvis Landry. Then they can be happy. Then the offense can do what they do, and everybody will be happy. Like, people don't realize that Nick Chubb's the leading rusher in the league this year, but you wouldn't have thought that knowing about, because that's not what's important on Cleveland right now. It's what's happening with Odell, what's happening with Landry, what's happening with Freddie Kitchens, what's happening in the front office. The Myles Garrett thing weeks ago. Because the Browns have some talent. They have the ability to be a good team. They just got to fix things. They got to work stuff out. They have to know how to play together, and they have to learn how to be coached. And this is going to be very interesting what happens. Like I said, they're playing for nothing on Sunday, so this is just to really end the season on a good note. And then we'll have to see what changes they make this offseason and see what they do to better solve the situation, because this situation needs to be solved, because you do not want this lingering into next year, because if the Browns start bad next year, you might see Freddie Kitchens gone in the first quarter of the season. If Freddie Kitchens wants to keep his job, he needs to make sure that he gets these guys ready to go next year. And that's all for this. But coming up next, we're going to talk about a list that Bleacher Report just released today, talking about 10 players they believe could say goodbye to the NFL after this season. I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on that next.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment, we talked about the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys, the state of both franchises. Talking about where they are at their points going into the offseason and what went wrong for both of those teams and what they need to do next year to fix these problems and to figure out what they need to do to put themselves in a better situation with the talent they have, because both teams are talented but underperformed this year. Now, this segment, we're going to talk about a list that Bleacher Report brought out, talking about 10 players they think are most likely to hang it up after the season. I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on each player, who I think is going to stay and who's going to go. And we're going to go ahead and kick this off. And the first person is Eli Manning. Obviously, Eli Manning started the season. And the Giants drafted Daniel Jones. And Eli got benched. Daniel Jones, so far, looks like he's ready to take the helm of the Giants. And he's ready to be the starting quarterback. And Eli Manning, it's kind of been this feeling through the last few games that he's played that it's the end. It's coming to an end for him. He brought this city 2 championships. He had his 210 consecutive regular season starts. And, he's done a lot for the Giants franchise. I think he will retire. I think it's over. I think Eli is going to go ahead and just go hang it up. I mean, you never know. Maybe a team might try to call him, but it's one of those things where Eli will definitely be appreciated for everything he's done for the city. And there should be no Eli slander. He did everything he could for them. And it's just one of those times where I think it's just time. It's time. Next player on the list is Drew Brice. Now, I think Drew Brice will come back next year. He's turning 41 in January. But I do feel like he will return. And also his contract was at the end of the year, league year. I do think that he'll stay. Some people may think they may go ahead and maybe sell him to retire or maybe even move on because of Teddy Bridgewater. But I don't think that would be really smart. I mean, Breeze even said he feels like there's a lot of great moments ahead. And I feel like he at the level he's playing, I feel like he's one of those guys where it's like, if I'm playing at a level that is hurting my team, that's when I'll walk away. And until then, he will continue to play. I think Drew Brees will be back next year for the New Orleans Saints still as their starting quarterback. And I think he'll have many great years to come. Remember, he's still batting Tom Brady for that career touchdowns record. So I don't think he's just going to give it up after this year. Next on the list is Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady has repeatedly talked about playing until he's 41 years old. But obviously, things can happen. Things can change. He lost Rob Gronkowski, who retired. Other than Edelman and James White, he doesn't really have a reliable target in the passing game, which has hindered his productivity. And, I mean, through 50 games, he has a low career low of a QBR of 53.1. A lot of people wonder if this is because of the talent or is Brady just declining. Now, the Patriots are still going to be a great team. The Patriots are still going to be in the mix, but I think Brady will come back for another year. There was a question that I asked him one time about how do you feel? Do you still having fun? And he was like, yes and no. Before it was yes. Now it's yes and no. So maybe there is something inside of him that's maybe kind of like, do I really want to keep doing this? Especially if the offense stays the way it's going, if the way it is. How long is Brady willing to continue to do this? Now, also, his contract is up at the end of the year. So, and there has been some rumors that he might even consider playing for another team just to show he can win out Belichick. We don't know how true that is, but he potentially could. So I think he will come back though next year. I do think Brady will return next year, and I think he'll be able to do what he has to do. Next player on this list is Frank Gore, the Buffalo Bills. Frank Gore, really was the main running back to start the first 8 weeks of the season. He on average he got 17 carries and 109 yards, and he's played well. He passed Barry Sanders for third place on the all-time rushing list. Frank Gore has been a reliable back for years. He's one of those guys though, since he is older, he can give you a lot early, but he might not be able to give you as much late. But he's still a veteran that you want in the locker room, especially with the Bills since Devin Singletary, the rookie, has came on. Frank Gore has taken a back seat, and he hasn't played that many snaps. And, he said he's not thinking about it, but he could retire this year. I do feel like he will retire after this year. He's already a Hall of Famer. There's really nothing else for him to prove. I mean, I feel like he's done everything he could. Now, if he comes back for another year, I wouldn't be surprised. But in my personal opinion, I do think he will end up leaving. Next is Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald has contemplated retirement before, and he's still out there. He was out there for Kyler Murray's first year as a rookie. And, he actually leads the Arizona Cardinals with 71 receptions over 759 yards. So this system could give him more freedom to still be at a productive level. And so you don't know when his career is going to end. I think Fitzgerald will come back for another year. He's been a guy who's never been hurt seriously. And, I don't think nagging body ailments are going to be a factor as much in his decisions and everything. So I think Fitzgerald will come. I think he will stay. He's second all time in receptions and receiving yards. So he wants to chase Jerry Rice potentially. And I think that Larry Fitzgerald will come back next year. Greg Olsen, he's been a very reliable tight end for the Carolina Panthers for the last few years, especially for Cam Newton. He's received some job offers from Fox and ESPN just in case he retires. And, he doesn't want to end his career because of injuries. And he's been healthy mainly this year. But I do think Olsen might stay. He has one more year left on his deal, and he might want to play through that last year and just stay. And I'm going to go with that he will stay. And we don't know if the Panthers, who have a new head coach and everything is, if they're going to bring him back. But I think Olsen can still play at a high level and be a reliable tight end for any team in the league. Next is Terrell Suggs. Now, Terrell Suggs was a long-time Baltimore Raven until 2018. After the 2018 season, he was moved off of the roster and signed with the Cardinals. Didn't particularly work the best. He really chose Arizona just to play for the hometown. Really wasn't, because his team's great. He was decent, but not the greatest. He's older, but he can still produce. He's had 5 sacks this year. His contract's over this year. I do think Suggs is going to probably retire this year. I think he's going to go ahead, do one last push with the Chiefs, and just go ahead and call it quits after this is over. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Next is Lorenzo Alexander of the Buffalo Bills. He played 9 years of his career with the Bills. And he was also one of the best players on the Bills. And, he's been a very key contributor for them for so long. He still played, at a high level. And, I think this is one of the more likely retirements. He's even said in a couple of interviews before, I think this is my last year. And I think this is his last year too. I think he's going to move on in the league. Next is Mike Adams. He's been around for a long time. When undrafted out of Villanova in 2004, he's played for a long, long time. He's playing with the Houston Texans right now. He's a 16-year veteran, 38 years old, and he only has 1 tackle this year. I think this is also one of those ones where I feel like he'll retire. I think he'll move on, and I think he's just going to go home to the kids. And lastly, Adam Vinatieri. Adam Vinatieri, we should not be surprised. He turns 47 Saturday. He also has had one of his worst seasons that he's ever had. And he also had to end his season early because of a knee surgery. I think Vinatieri is going to go ahead and retire. I think that he will go down, if not as the greatest kicker of all time, one of the best or greatest clutch kickers of all time. He's done so well for every team he's been on, from the Patriots to the Colts to, just any team that signed him. And I think Vinatieri will go down as a Hall of Fame kicker. I think everybody knows that. He's played so long into this game. And, congrats to him on a long career, but I do think he'll end up retiring. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some college football playoff talk. I'm going to give you my predictions and thoughts on the games this week and who I think is going to win.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment, we talked about Bleacher Report's 10 players they think is going to hang it up after the season, and I gave my thoughts and opinions on each player and who I thought was going to retire. Now we're going to talk about some college football, and we're going to talk about some games. We're going to talk about 5 games. Now, I said the college football playoffs, but I was like, let me give the other games some love. We're going to talk about 5 games. Starting with USC versus Iowa. 22 versus 16 in the Holiday Bowl. I think USC is going to come out with a victory. USC has been under a lot of scrutiny. Todd Helton's been under a lot of scrutiny. They had one of the worst recruiting classes in school's history. And I think winning this game might help just, raise the morale around the campus. I think it's going to be important for them to come out there and play very well for their coach, because you never know. You never know. You could have a wacky situation. You never know. But I'm going to go with USC. I think they're going to pick up the win this week against Iowa. The next game, we have Memphis versus Penn State. This is usually the Group of 5 game versus the Power 5 game. This is the game where you have the best Group of 5 team versus one of the best, not obviously top 4 or anything like that, but, one of the better up there teams of the Power 5. And this is usually known as the David versus Goliath game in the Cotton Bowl. Memphis is coming into this game as the highest rated Group of 5 team, playing Penn State. I'm going to go with Memphis in this game to get the upset. I think Memphis is going to show the world that this year they can compete with the powerhouses. Which, again, it's not the powerhouses in the playoffs, but powerhouses just in general in the Power 5. I think Memphis has just been looking for this game to make a statement. This is always an interesting game to me every year because it's basically a statement game for a Group of 5 team saying we can play with your guys. So don't be scared if one of us finished undefeated to put us up there in the picture potentially to make the playoff. Next, we got Notre Dame and Iowa State. I think Notre Dame's going to win this game pretty handily. It's the first game. Not the first game. It's one of the first games on Saturday before the playoffs. I think Notre Dame got this game on lockdown. I think they're going to beat Iowa State. I think they're going to end the season 11-2. And that's the Camping World Bowl. I think Notre Dame, obviously, probably high expectations, but, things happen, and, hopefully they'll get back on track next year with Brian Kelly. And now we're going to get to the playoff games, where now, obviously, I'm going to give you more of an in-depth analysis, more of an in-depth look on these games and my predictions on what I think is going to happen during these games. So, first game, Oklahoma LSU. Now, a lot of people do not think Oklahoma has a chance in this game because they're playing LSU, who's look like the best team. Them or Ohio State, they like the best team in college football. They look at Oklahoma. They come from the Big 12. Defense isn't that good, even though their defense is number 1 in the Big 12 this year. They're looking at the fact that the last 2 times against the SEC teams, they couldn't stop them. So, and they're definitely not going to start LSU because LSU is just as good, if not better, than those SEC teams. And so you're kind of at a point where it's basically everybody's saying that Oklahoma's going to lose. And I think Oklahoma will use this as motivation. They're going to use this as something to drive them during this game. They're going to sit here and say, we think we're just as good as these guys. We think we can play with these guys. And if a couple of bounces went our way the last 2 years, we think we could have won those games. I think it fuels them right now. I think that's their motivation. And Lincoln Riley is one of the best coaches in the nation. You don't think he'll have a game plan for that LSU defense, which has looked very, very questionable at times this year? Do not expect this. Do not be surprised if this is a high-scoring game. I think Oklahoma has a great chance in this game, that compared to a lot of black people think. Jalen Hurts has played against these guys before. Jalen Hurts has played against SEC talent. He knows what these games are like. He knows what's in store. He is going to be the reason why they win this game if they win this game. Jalen Hurts is the guy that everybody expects if they win, he'll be the reason. Jalen Hurts has to do it running, and he also has to do it passing. Jalen Hurts has all the ability in the world to do it. Now, Oklahoma has suspended some players for this game, which is going to hurt him, especially on the defensive side. I believe they suspended Rest Pat Rusher. You want to get pressure on Joe Burrow, because that's going to be very important to get him off his spot, the Heisman Trophy winner. But Jalen Hurts has some offensive weapons. They love running the ball. They're a running football team. And they have one of the best receivers in the nation in CeeDee Lamb. He's going to have a big game. CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Hurts are going to have a big game. The running game is going to have to get some ball control. There's going to have to be some ball control in this game. I feel like if you're Lincoln Riley, you're going to have to score a lot of points, but you're going to definitely not want a lot of quick plays. You're going to want methodical drives. If you dig a dunk and get 8, 9, 10 yards, I think that will work. You kind of want to not give LSU as much time as possible to score. Because it's just the perception is just like Oklahoma won't stop LSU enough to be able to really win this game. And so I believe that Oklahoma has to really tailor their game plan to being methodical, driving down the field, and making things happen. Because it's going to be crucial for them if they want to beat this team. They can make one of the greatest upsets in college football history, and probably the greatest upset in college football playoff history in his young history. If they can upset the LSU Tigers, led by Ed Orgeron, who's coach of the year. He deserves it. He's adjusted, and he's turned into a coach that a lot of people thought he wouldn't be. And for a year, he can say he was better than Alabama and Nick Saban. And he's going to want to say that for the years to come. Obviously, Joe Burrow probably goes to the draft after this, regardless of how the season ends. But LSU's in good place. And they know that this is their first time in the playoff, and they need to make a statement to beat Oklahoma. They need to show everybody why they're the favorites and why everybody thinks they're going to win it all. And they have all the talent in the world to do that. That's one thing about them. They have all the talent in the world to show why they deserve to be number one and why everybody has been predicting them to destroy Oklahoma or just and make it to the college football championship and win. And I think that LSU, to me, I think LSU is going to win this game. But do not be surprised if Oklahoma gets an upset. I'm just saying it's going to be close if that happens, but it makes you feel like either LSU blows out Oklahoma or Oklahoma wins by a field goal. That's just me. Now we're going against Clemson, Ohio State. Now this is a game where a lot of people were actually predicting that Clemson's going to win. A lot of people, it's weird because a lot of people were on Clemson's case earlier in the year because of the schedule. And now everybody's saying, oh, they'll beat Ohio State. Yeah, they're going to beat Ohio State. It's no problem. And but we've been debating all year about Ohio State's the most complete team in college football. And just because Clemson against some sorry competition or not so good competition hasn't particularly played or has played to a point where they've destroyed all of them. Now people are kind of getting back on Clemson's bandwagon saying, oh, they're going to beat Ohio State. Ohio State can't beat that. Now, one thing that is working against Ohio State in this game is Justin Fields is not 100%. He has a little bit of I believe it's an ACL sprain. So he's not 100%, and he might not be as mobile. So that offensive line for Ohio State is going to have to really protect up front against one of the underrated defensive lines in the nation in Clemson. A lot of people are expecting Clemson to come into this game, and some people think they might even blow out Ohio State. I think this game, to me, is probably the best game of the weekend in terms of just pure talent, head-to-head matchup. This is going to be a big game for both quarterbacks. Because remember, a lot of people think these two quarterbacks, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, are going to go 1 and 2 in the draft next year, after this coming year's draft. And this is going to be a game for them to show it right here. For me, I'm going to go and take Ohio State. I think Ohio State will get the upset. I think Ohio State will make enough plays defensively against Trevor Lawrence and come out with the victory. This isn't me thinking Clemson is not good enough or anything like that. This is just, I feel like it's kind of the Oklahoma game. Ohio State's kind of been disrespected. But yet, it's not like, oh, there's a talent deficiency and the team was disrespected. It's, honestly, on paper, talent-wise, they're the same. And then you're disrespecting one. Like, that could really work in favor of Ohio State, not Clemson. That could hurt Clemson. Because their heads are getting filled up with this expectation. We're going to beat them. Everybody thinks we're going to beat them. And Ohio State thinks, well, we've been the number one team in our opinion all year long. Why is it now because we're going against the defending champs, so now we can't win? So I think Ryan Day's going to get them boys ready, and I think they're going to come out with a victory. But coming up next, I'm going to talk about my Week 17 NFL predictions now, my predictions of who's going to win the game, and I also might give you some fantasy advice. Stay tuned.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment, we talked about the college football playoff and other college football games, and my opinions and thoughts and predictions on all those games and what I thought was going to happen. More of a breakdown for the college football playoff games about what teams are motivated, which teams are underrated, and who I think is going to come out with a victory at the end of the day. So now, we're going to talk about the Week 17 games. I'm actually going to give my predictions on these games now. And I might give you some fantasy advice later. So, first game, Patriots-Dolphins. I think Patriots are going to win this game. I think they're going to push the number 2 seed. I would not be surprised, though, if there was an upset. Do not be shocked if there's an upset here. But I do think the Patriots will win this game. It's actually funny because the over and under for this game is 44.5, and there's a 50 in there over 15 for the Patriots. So, if you're a betting man, I take it. Falcons, Buccaneers. I think the Falcons are going to win this game. I think they're going to get their win back from the loss they suffered to Tampa earlier. I think they're going to finish the season 7-9. And, I think that, I don't know if it's going to save Dan Quinn's job, but it could potentially. We'll just have to see. I think Jameis Winston is going to hit that 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions in this game. And I don't know how anybody's going to look at this. Like, okay, do we look at him as a great quarterback? Do we look at him as a horrible quarterback? Like, where do we look at him? Is he just mediocre? Because that's not mediocre numbers. But, like I said, Jameis Winston is probably the most all-over-the-place quarterback we've ever seen in NFL history. Next game, Bears-Vikings. I'm going to go with the Vikings in this game. I'm a little skeptical just because I don't know if they're going to really play their starters like that. If they don't play their starters like that, I'll go Bears, but I'm going to go with the assumption they're going to play their starters, so I'm going to go Vikings. I believe the Vikings are just the better team. And I think the Vikings, again, they need some positive momentum going into the playoff game next week after that loss to Green Bay. And a lot of people are looking down on Kirk Cousins going to that game. So I think this is also a good chance to maybe get Kirk Cousins some confidence back and maybe, just get him playing at a higher level. Because you really want to be at your best when you go into the playoffs. You don't want to play kind of lackadaisical trying to go into it. Next game is Browns and Bengals. I think Browns are going to win this game. I think the Browns are going to reestablish the running game in this game. Last time they played the Bengals, they were able to run the ball on the Bengals, and I think they're going to do it here too. I think that's going to be what they need to do here. I don't think you need to make this a passing game with Baker. We've seen what's happened this year when that's happened. But I do think the Browns are going to come away with the victory. I think the Browns are going to get their 7th win of the year and finish the season on a good note. And like I said, like I talked about earlier, we'll have to see what they do next year and how they change some of the things that have happened from the organization this year. And, just hope for the best with those guys. Chargers and Chiefs. Got Chiefs here. Chiefs going to win this game easily. I think Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are looking like the most complete team in the AFC. other than Baltimore. Remember, they can win it defensively now because their defense is playing fantastic. And don't forget, Patrick Mahomes can still light you up on the offense. Man. The Chiefs are the most dangerous team I feel like going into the AFC playoffs also, and I think they're going to finish the season 12-4, and they're going to really come out there and whoever they play wild card weekend, or if they get the first round bye, better watch out. The Chiefs are coming. Jets, Bills, I'm going to go with the Bills here. I think the Bills are going to bounce back after the loss to the Patriots. This game's going to be very interesting. I think the Bills, again, this is a game where you want to just kind of get some positive momentum going into the playoffs next week. You're going against a Jets team that has nothing to play for, but they're playing well at the end of the season. So I think that this game's going to be closer than what some people might expect. But again, Buffalo is not an offensive team that's going to light you up. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this game. Like I said, you just want to make sure your chemistry and the flow of everything is at a good rate in this game. If you're Bills fans and you're just trying to get yourself ready for the next week's playoff game, really. But I'm going to go with the Bills here to win this game. Next game, Packers and Lions. I'm going to go to Packers here. I think the Packers are going to easily win this game. I just feel like they're a way better team. They're going to play their starters because they're playing for something. And I think they're going to go ahead and destroy the Lions real quick and just take care of business. And, we'll have to see. Some people are still this is the most questioned 13-3 team if they win this game. 13-3 team I've ever heard of. A lot of people are still very just like, are they really that good? Because the losses they've had have been bad. And then the wins they've had have been ugly. And so you're just like, are they really that good? Are they just getting lucky? Like, what is it? There's a lot of are they really as good as we think they are? I get that a lot with Green Bay, but I'm going to pick them in this game. Going and getting that first round bye. Saints and Panthers. Saints are going to win this game. Unless Christian McCaffrey has a historical performance, I don't see the Panthers winning this game. Saints are clicking on all cylinders. Michael Thomas is the best receiver this year in the NFL. Jared Cook's played extremely well for Drew Brees. Brees is playing at a high level, and the defense is playing at a high level. Again, they're going to play their starters because they're trying to play. Hopefully, Packers losing at that bye. So I think the Panthers are in for a very long day in their last game of the season. And I think the Saints are going to come out with the victory. Cardinals and Rams. I'm going to go with Arizona. I just feel like the Rams are falling apart. I just think the Rams just have a lot they need to figure out, and I think this game's not going to be any better. I think Kenyon Drake might actually have another big game too. Now, if Kyler Murray does not play in this game, then obviously Rams. But if Kyler Murray does play in this game, I think they're going to win. But we also got to see how limited Kyler Murray is with that hamstring. But if not, I do think that Kyler Murray is going to win this game, and they're going to win and end their season on a good note at 6-9-1. Colts and Jags, I think we're going to go with the Colts here. The Jags just have not looked like the same team ever since they traded Jalen Ramsey. And they look like they honestly quit on Doug Marrone. They still play decently. They have a lot of questions going into the offseason. I think the Colts they're just playing for fun. You saw it last week. They played the Panthers. They played one of their best games of the year last year. And I think they're going to do the same thing here and come in here and beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville. So, Eagles and Giants. I'm going with the Eagles to clinch the NFC East right here. I think the Eagles are going to get the job done. I think out of the two teams from their matchups, Eagles have the tougher one because the Giants actually have offensive weapons. They have Sterling Shepard, Tate, Barkley, Ingram. Everybody's healthy. So it's going to be a tough game. I think Daniel Jones coming off that 5-touchdown game, he's feeling pretty good about himself. So the Eagles really have to be on it defensively, and hopefully they can still produce offensively. Greg Ward Jr. and Miles Sanders are going to be very much needed in this game, and hopefully Ertz can go with his broken rib, and if not, they have another tight end, Goddard, who can definitely pick up the slack if needed. Raiders and Broncos. I think Raiders going to win this game. It's going to be close. Broncos could win this game. They have a good defense, and Drew Lock's playing well, but I'm going to go with the Raiders to win this game. It will be disappointing if they lost in a very heartbreaking fashion, but I think Raiders are going to pick up the victory. I think they're going to win this game because they need to win this game, and I think Derek Carr, if not, even if they win or lose, could be playing his last game as Oakland Raider. Redskins, Cowboys. I think are going to win this game. I think Cowboys are going to take care of business. I think that the Redskins just are not a good team. I think Case Keenum's playing this week. I think because of Hopkins' injury. Haskins injury. And I think that the Cowboys are just trying to end the season on a good note. But it's still going to be, it's almost like this is the one game where they could win but still be disappointed, because it's just like, yeah, we beat the Redskins, but we're still not making the playoffs. And we could have made the playoffs. Honestly, we could have made the playoffs last week if we won. And we didn't. And now we're not going to get in. And now we don't control our own destiny. And it's disappointing for them. Ravens and Steelers, I'm going with the Ravens. Even though the Ravens could potentially bench, they're benching Lamar, and they're benching argument. They could potentially bench more starters. I just feel like they're still going to have a lot of their defense out there, and the Steelers' offense is just not that good. This is going to be a defensive game, though. If the Steelers win, it's going to be because of their defense. If the Ravens win, I just think it's just they're making enough plays. Like I said, if RGIII plays well, then they should win this game. Honestly, I think the Steelers, since their offense is kind of very not the best, you feel like if you just hit a certain point total, you should win this game. And keep Pittsburgh out of the playoffs potentially. But I'm going to go with the Ravens here. Titans and Texans, I'm going with the Titans. I think the Texans are actually, I really think they might go ahead and sit their starters if the Chiefs win, which means I think the Titans will get the win. I think also, since they're desperate, I think they're going to play desperate. Tannehill's play well, even in the 2 losses. And A.J. Brown, I think, is going to have a bounce-back week this week, and I think they're going to – and Derrick Henry comes back this week also. So I really do think the Titans are going to go pick up the victory this week and beat the Texans. And in the NFC West championship, basically the championship on the line, the crown of the division, I'm going to go with the 49ers to win this game. I think Seattle, with all the running back injuries, is going to affect them. You can't expect the running backs to come out and just dominate from the get-go. So I think the 49ers are going to pick up the victory. I think they're going to get their win back when they lost earlier in the year. And I think they're going to go and beat the Seattle Seahawks in this Sunday night game. But thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.